The following broadcast is intended for mature audiences. These are real people sharing very real, deeply personal experiences. This content may be considered triggering for others and for those who are sharing. The chat room is a privilege intended for discussions and sharing. You are not being asked to agree, but you are being asked to stay civil and refrain from personal attacks. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to Am I Mental, a live podcast where people share stories about how life impacts mental health and how mental health impacts life. I'm your host, E. With us tonight, as always, is our co-host, Oz.
What's up, Am I Mental fan?
And before we dive into this too much, you may have noticed a little change here. There is no intro music. What happened to the intro music, the pre-song thing? Yeah, not doing that anymore. It takes too long. Too many people were coming to listen to our episodes, and we're getting complaints about, I came to listen, and all I got was music. What's going on with that? So yeah, you know what? It was fun while it lasted, but we are done with that. We do enough talking now at the beginning before we get to the episode that should be enough to get people in the chat, as we already have Kat in there. Hello, Kat. So before we get going, a little house cleaning. We haven't done this in a while. Or housekeeping. If you like what you hear, give us a like, give us a follow, whatever platform you happen to be on. Thumbs up, heart, stars, whatever that is. Also, on top of that, if you think that what we do is valuable, be sure to share some episodes with people, especially people that you think could benefit. We have a deep catalog now. You know, we've done this for 3 years. This is episode 1 of year 4. So there's a good chance there's an episode out there that someone could relate to that might be able to help someone. On top of that, if you want to give us further help, there you can always go to amimental.net/donate. There's a number of ways you could go ahead and donate, including purchasing products. If there's any products that you'd like to see that we don't have for sale, let us know. We can go ahead and get them created. It really doesn't take long to do.
Show your support for mental health by supporting our swag.
Absolutely. We got t-shirts, hoodies, we got a tote bag, and honestly, I have the tote bag. It's pretty amazing. And there's been other listeners that have got that tote bag and they love it too. It's a quality tote bag, I gotta say. But yeah, all that aside, definitely, you know, we appreciate all your support. You know, this is year 4. It's hard to believe that we're at that point already. It's pretty awesome. And yeah, without further ado, tonight's guest is Alice.
Hi.
All right, so why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what we're going to talk about tonight?
So I'm Alice. I'm a single mom of 2 neurodivergent kids, and I found out probably about a year after my oldest was diagnosed with autism that a lot of the same signs and symptoms were there with me growing up, and I didn't know about it. So I've been kind of doing this journey with him.
So basically, you found out that you may be on the spectrum because your kids are on the spectrum. Is basically what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yeah. Alice was talking about they were going over the checklist for kids who could be on the spectrum, and that was kind of her first clue to it. She's like, "Oh, that looks familiar. Oh, that's familiar as well. Wait, I'm checking a lot of these boxes." You know.
So you basically had a big hold up moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was the picky kid who didn't eat anything except croutons for like a year. And
I mean, they're croutons, so I mean, I can't blame you.
Yeah. I'm in my Chex Mix phase right now.
Oh, you've come back to it, but not all the Chex Mix in the bag. Only specific Chex Mix. You know,
the specific.
Yeah, specific ones.
It's kind of like me taking out the crispy rye bread parts out of that one famous mix or whatever it is.
The Gardettos?
Yes! Mm-hmm. Like, I just want those little dark brown chips. Those are the best parts.
That's funny. Those
So
are the
my
ones she
current Chex
hates.
Mix one is like the regular Chex Mix. Yeah. The only I'm buying like paying $3 a bag for just the rice Chex part from it. I throw the rest of the bag away. I just want the rice Chex, and the Gardettos don't have that.
Send
So
those to me. I'll eat the remnants.
I
Yeah.
actually put them in a Ziploc bag and send them off with my ex when he comes to see the kids on Sundays.
Cat in chat said her favorite Chex is the rice.
They're good.
So, yeah, maybe if enough people are out there, Chex will just release the rice only for
Right.
y'all.
Right?
I will say
They have like the wheat Chex that you can buy.
I will say that I haven't seen them in a long time, and I kind of miss Crispix. If you guys remember those,
I have 3 boxes in my bedroom right now.
I can never
My
find
favorite
it.
cereal.
I love Crispix. I can never find it though.
Yep, there's been a shortage. Every time I'm lucky to find one, I just get it, and then I hoard it and wait too long.
So, you have quite the interesting story, and knowing your full bio, it's kind of it's hard to stop myself from wanting to pick and choose different instances within your life, because they're all so interesting. I think a lot of our listeners will get something from different parts of it. So I think it'd be easiest if we just kind of start at the beginning, of what it's like, what life was like for you. You had quite an interesting upbringing. Maybe tell us a little bit about your early life and what your family situation was like.
So my parents divorced when I was about 6 months old. They were starting to get divorced about, I want to say, 2 or 3 years before I was born. But then my mom's brother, who was schizophrenic, killed himself, and she couldn't handle a divorce as well as her brother's death. They were very close. He was born on her 6th birthday. And so my parents were sleeping in different rooms at the time, and they were doing painting or something. They ended up in the same room. 9 months later, here I am. They got divorced very quickly after. My dad had a bone disease, which he said there was no chance of passing it on. And 6 months, I think, in, my mom found my first tumor. So she found out he lied. Divorced him, and then did the single mom thing with me and my brother. Realized she couldn't handle 2 kids that were a challenge. I want to say a challenge because we were both neurodivergent and no one knew.
And I mean,
So she
we're
sent
talking
my brother
about
off to.
we're talking about decades ago too, which was
Yeah, this was the 80s.
yeah, and mental
my
health.
brother was 4 years older.
Oh yeah, so the 80s, that's when all the federal mental health facilities got shut down, and we just don't talk about mental health.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very much with my grandparents too.
Yeah. Mental health was like hide your problems and beat your children.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
was
until
definitely
they're normal.
It was
You know,
definitely the
it's
dark
not.
ages of mental
Like
health.
if you had any mental illness, mental health issues, you were a pariah to society and the family, everything. You'd think growing up in my family, they'd be more understanding since they lost their own son to schizophrenia, but I think that just made it worse.
Yeah,
And your grandparents were they were very well known within the community they were in, right? They had
Yes.
status within the community, so there was
Yes.
status to upkeep.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Very much so.
And my, I
yeah,
was gonna say
part
my
of what makes it
mom's.
hard
Oh, go for it.
is that what part of what makes it hard looking back is especially her grandfather, who she adores, was one of the people within the community that people would go to for advice. He was kind of he was like the wise man in that community. It was a deeply religious community, and he was sought after.
Yes.
But as great as he was, hide all the family secrets, and that's hard to come out.
Literally, very literally. He was a lawyer. Um, so he was able to get things off of, my mom's record, my aunt's record. He was able to pay off certain family members, things that happened to them, so that way they wouldn't talk. Like what you would hear of in like a movie,
Yeah,
like a conspiracy documentary.
yeah,
Man, I was gonna say that my mom's side of the family, my mom had an uncle who was deaf and a very, very big, very strong, and very violent schizophrenic. And he hated his tranquilizers, and they'd have to sneak them to him. And one time they were making brownies, and they gave him a brownie, and they had a tranquilizer in it, and he ate it, and it knocked him out quite a bit. And then later on, they went to give him another brownie, and the first thing he started doing was picking through the brownie looking for the tranquilizer. And they knew if he found it, which they didn't put a second one in, he would have gotten violent. But again,
yeah.
this was the 70s.
Things were very different
Yeah.
for anyone neurodivergent back then.
It was less about helping the person and more about making it easier to live with the person for everybody else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. It sounds super accurate.
Thankfully, we
What was,
flipped that paradigm.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What was your home life like back then with your mom and your brother?
so I don't remember anything from when my brother was younger. I was, I want to say, a year and a half or two, and my mom sent him to live with my dad because she said we were like oil and water. We sought each other out and we antagonized each other. And I'm going through the same exact thing with my kids. And she could not handle both of us. So she sent him to live with my dad, which she regretted a lot. She found out a lot of stuff about my dad about 9 years after they divorced and made life very rough for everyone. And then I want to say in like 88, she went to a chiropractor and I think it was an inversion table. And I don't know what happened, but it fell with her on it and temporarily paralyzed her. So she sued and she won. She got a house out of the deal, brand new house built in 89. Smartest thing my grandpa did was make her buy that house. Dumbest thing she ever did was not pay the taxes on that house and lost the house with no mortgage. But I remember my mom always was looking for the next guy who was going to take care of her. She was mentally ill, and in our family, if you're mentally ill and you're unable to take care of yourself, you are left behind. They don't really, they'd rather pay and take care of you rather than teach you how to be on your own. So my mom had my grandpa paying for property taxes every year, and my mom would just bring guy after guy through.
And I can't think that not having the skill set to take care of yourself can't contribute to good mental health, but can only contribute to poor mental health, because you never get that confidence.
Yeah. So my mom.
Allison shared me what. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I can wait.
I was gonna say, like part of that you were telling me one of your early memories, like around that time, is like one of the guys she came home was rebuilding a motorcycle in the living room.
That was Bill Kelly.
That type of atmosphere.
Nickname Dog, DAWG. I actually loved him. They called CPS when he was around the house. And CPS and the police showed up to my school and asked me if there was any scary men at my mom's house. I'm like, no. She's like, well, are there any men? I'm like, you mean Dog? He was awesome, you know. I didn't understand that they were drug buddies.
Yeah.
They didn't let me know that they were on drugs until I was. My mom didn't think I knew about the drugs until I was about 13. I didn't know until I was about 11.
So you knew for a couple of years. So you knew a couple of years that they were trying to hide it still.
Yeah.
Her mom was really open about it too. One of the first times I met her, not the very first time, which
that was the best time.
But like one of the first 3 times I met her, she was telling me about how she used to shoot a crank, and for when times were lean, she would draw her own blood and store it in her fridge, so she can later reshoot it up so she can get high. She had so much drugs in her system, her stored blood in the fridge would get her high again.
Wow.
So she didn't start using drugs until I was about 8 or 9. Maybe a little older. She married someone named Miguel when I was, I think, 6 or 7. And he was very abusive and manipulative. He didn't know the language that great. And, you know, he required her to write down everything she did during the day to prove where she was. And that's not good for anyone. And then, so in my church, we get baptized at 8. She asked him if I would let him baptize me, and I said no, I wanted my dad. So I fought to have my dad do it. That was in August of 94. And by November of 94, I was living temporarily at my grandparents'. Sometime between August and November, something snapped. I remember my mom was screaming and crying at the kitchen table, and she went into a rage all of a sudden, and she went into her room, into the safe. And the only reason I know what she got is she almost shot me a few years before. And she went and got the gun and just left. And so I called my grandparents saying, Mom left with a gun. I'm pretty sure she's going to go kill Miguel. And I was 8.
Wow. Wow.
So she was not mentally there. Parenthood puts a lot on a person. They a lot of times don't know they're neurodivergent or have mental problems until after they have a kid, because they don't have that stress. Once the stress is there, and then add the stress of an abusive relationship like that, could cause anyone to... Yeah, definitely. My grandpa made it to where there's no charges at all on it. She got everything dropped. She was no longer allowed to ever have a gun now. But I don't know if she kept to that.
Yeah.
In the comments,
There
Kat,
was there was her meat cleaver phase. I forgot about that.
I don't know about the meat cleaver phase.
She would walk the neighborhood with a meat cleaver and wave it at neighbors who yelled at her.
Was this the same time when she had the alien landing pad? The
Probably, yeah.
tell us
Yeah.
tell us about the alien.
Bowling ball art. I forgot.
Yeah, she took a dining room table, I think it was, and put rebar in the ground around it, and then sat bowling balls in the thumb holes in the rebar around the table to
Spikes at
give
different
the
levels.
aliens, yeah, to give the aliens a landing pad to come and talk to her again.
Yes.
again.
So she
Again.
insists.
She
that-
sounds like the average person from my hometown, to be completely honest. My hometown is
She's
out there.
I met her when Alice was 17 or 18, and she wasn't mellow, but she had mellowed out, and she's really entertaining, and she was awesome.
She's
sometimes.
not entertaining if it's your mom. She's embarrassing.
Yes, but I used to like watching her antagonize you, just like you used to like watching her antagonize me. The first time we met, like Alice's favorite story. The first time we met, we were going through some hard times. The water was off at our house. We were living together. Went over there to shower, and first off, Alice is fucked up for this one. She didn't tell me her mom was a hoarder. I thought
it was normal. I thought it was normal.
And so I walked in, and she opened the door, and I was like, "What?" Like I didn't know. Oh, and like I was very, very stone faced back then. I had a very
that
good
was
poker
actually
face.
a lot cleaner than it was my senior year of high school.
And she had paths through the house to each room. And it wasn't dirty. It wasn't dirty keeping wrappers order. It was she would
Very cluttered.
have something.
She was a tweaker, and she liked garage sales and
dumpster diving.
dives. And
It was all nice stuff, but it was like literally there was a room that nobody knew was there because there was boxes in front of it, and it was a whole bedroom full of shit. Like, but
this is the second time I've heard that kind of a story where there's like the room that nobody knew about because it was full of shit, and there's shit in front of the door so you couldn't see it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But she went to go take a shower.
That was the room with the nice stuff.
Yeah, I also went to go take a shower and left me with her mom. And I was already kind of freaked out, but I was like, okay. And the way I was raised, be super polite to your elders, no matter how weird they are. And she goes and her mom pats the chair next to her bed. Her mom's like laying in bed, like, come sit next to me and talk to me. And I was like, this is weird. I shouldn't even be in your mom's bedroom, but okay. And
is this the time where her TV had already been hollowed out?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
She had a big screen TV, like the big kind that had like the magnifying glass in the front, but there was nothing in it. There was no magnifying glass, and it was just full of shit. And
like magazines and
newspapers, lots of newspapers. So Alice goes to take a shower, and she's talking to me, and she starts doing this thing like she's got peanut butter stuck to the top of her mouth, pops her dentures out, and starts scratching at them, and scratching at the roof of her mouth, and says, "Oh, I got a Jolly Rancher stuck. If I don't get it out, it'll cut me." Puts her dentures down on her nightstand and just keeps talking to me like it's an everyday thing. It's cool. And I was just like, there's nothing as a young man that prepares you for your girlfriend's mom to do something like that. That whole situation.
And I didn't think I had to warn him that she didn't have real teeth, because you don't think anyone's going to pop their teeth out mid-conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I just remember her making the like sound like she pulls them out, and like pop sound as they unsuction, and I was just.
And I'm not the best at introductions. Like, I kind of expect people to already know each other. And I'm like, this is my mom, okay? I'm going to go shower. There was no let
That
them
was
get
it.
their feelers on.
That-
This is my mom.
100%.
Bye.
Like no buffer, no like get to know you chit chat. It's like, this is my mom. This is Austin. Where are the towels? I'm gonna go shower. And our introduction was like 7.5 seconds, and then she disappeared. It's already awkward if you're with
Meeting a significant other's parents for the first time, that is not comfortable to begin with.
But to me, she wasn't like an actual parent. She was just a lady who gave birth to me.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it says a lot where Alice was raised in such a chaotic environment that she just felt like this is how people are. This is my mom's a normal in quotes person that I don't have to give warnings to. Doesn't have to come with the warning label at all, And for her, I think your mom even talked about sex the first time I was there. Like, to have somebody's mom bring up sex. Not even like, I know you're fucking my daughter. Not that, but just the topic of sex. And I was like,
she was very open with that topic. And
yes, she was.
Way too open with all her experiences with me. She told me all these things when I was like 17. And then I got drunk at one of my brother's friend's house, and they did an online radio show, and they needed like a filler because they were having sound difficulties, and they gave me the microphone, and I was pissed at her, so I just said all of it, everything that she had told me on the car ride over, including like the guys she was with, seeing my grandpa naked, literally everything. I'm like, she's never gonna hear it. Why not?
You never want to see your own parents naked. You never want to hear about your grandparents being naked.
Oh, I've seen my grandpa's balls more times than I want to admit. Yeah. They started to get pretty low.
In her grandpa's defense, it was always by accident.
It was not accident. They had a double door, and in order to get to any other room, you had to walk past their room. Both doors are open. He's standing there just reading a newspaper at the foot of his bed completely naked. That is not an accident. That is being senile.
I mean, you're not purposely senile.
That's
my mom used to play it off like she was going to senile on purpose, just so she can get away with things. But
yeah, that was fun. What? Huh?
But you whisper some shit across the room that you don't want her to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom would be like, "Say that shit to my face." I thought you were deaf. I thought you couldn't hear anything.
To be fair,
she was only deaf to the things that you wanted to tell her.
Yeah, she's like, I hear everything.
My grandpa was deaf, and he would think he was whispering, and he wasn't.
Yeah, he's very accidental racist all the time.
Not accidental, he was racist.
Was he straight racist? Well, he played it off like he didn't know that there was anything wrong with it. Like, it was growing up in San Francisco, some of the things I heard were like really, really shocking to me because I hadn't experienced. I mean, I've seen racism through police. Police beat up my ethnic friends. Police beat me up, but not nearly as much as often as them. And so, but amongst peers, which he wasn't a peer, obviously, he didn't see a whole lot of racism. And for him to he called black folks chocolatiers.
I thought that was an endearing term.
Yeah,
I didn't know that could be offensive. So I'm like 10 years old. This is before my grandparents got custody of me. And I was visiting my mom, and she took me to Del Paso Heights. And I had to go to the bathroom, and there was a Dairy Queen there. We were on our way to go get drugs from Gardenland. And
just for the listeners who aren't familiar with the Sacramento
it's the
area,
straight up ghetto.
yeah, Del Paso Heights is It's better
If you were
now. Oak Park's worse now, but back in the 80s and 90s, yeah, Del Paso
If
Heights
you
was
were white, you do not want to be in there.
No.
So
no.
I'm 9 years old. We're going into Dairy Queen. I see a group of black people. I'm like, Mom, look, a group of chocolatiers. She just straight up grabbed
Oh my
me,
God.
turned me back around, and went straight to the car with me. She didn't even. I'm like, I have to pee. She's like, no, you don't. Come on.
You're gonna get us killed.
Yep. Yeah.
I thought it was cute.
Yeah, being taught that kind of stuff is normal. Like,
that's not the fault
like,
of
well,
the child.
That's a lot better than what he could say.
Yeah. And again, that's not the fault of the child. That's the fault of the parents that taught the child that was okay, or the adults in the room that made that okay.
I mean, everyone thought it was hilarious in my family because to us it was normal, but in the ghetto, no.
Not so much, no. Yeah. What age were you when you started to figure out that you didn't have the typical family? When did things see? Because chaos is normalized, right? When you're rounded enough. When did you realize when you were like,
honestly,
wait?
Probably this year. Honestly, truthfully, I have been writing about my past as I'm working on getting in with a therapist, and I know they're going to want to unpack the whole everything. So I've just been writing in chronological order all of my life, what I remember. And I'm writing this, I'm like, this is horrible. How did I think all of this is just normal? And
well, when you're immersed in that experience,
yeah, like it's awful,
So what was going to high school like for you as you got a little bit older? So you find out about your mom's drug use when she was about 11. Was your brother back living with you?
So
by then?
in end of 97, my mom was on drugs, and she found out that my dad was a closet pedophile, and she found out, threatened to expose him unless he paid her, and he fled the state with my brother for a few years. No one knew where my brother was for about 2.5, 3 years. I found out where he was, but no one told me anything about going on with my dad. So I didn't know to tell where my brother was. My dad would call me from a block number always, but it was always at the same time on the same day. So I would get the phone bill and find out where the call was coming from. It didn't have the full number, but I was able to get the area code. And then I went to the school library and found out where the area code is, because there's no Google back then.
No, 97,
time,
97,
yeah.
I was working my first IT job at an internet provider. 33.6 modems were king, and everything was Alta Vista for your search engine.
Yeah, so I'm going through books and catalogs at school trying to find out where this 816 area code is. He fled to Missouri, and when he called me the next time, I asked him what he was doing in Missouri, and he told me I couldn't tell anyone. I'm, 11, 12 years old at this time. I didn't know what was going on, so I didn't tell anyone. And then I think it was like towards the end of my 8th grade year that my brother finally came back to live with my mom. By that point, she's completely on drugs. My brother is completely and emotionally messed up at that point. He's like 15, I think. And then going to go live with a druggie who isn't a parent and lets him drink and do drugs and all these things. So he was there when I was a freshman in high school, but I was living with my grandparents still. I was an honors student, straight A's, except for like math, I get a B. Um, my family was they put a lot of emphasis on grades. If you didn't get an A, you're failing. And I would be up till midnight doing homework because I don't know, I'm neurodivergent. I don't understand why everything's so much harder for me at this point, why it's taking me hours upon hours to do basic homework. But I got these grades and I was stressed to the max, so I started smoking weed. And that, in my grandparents' mind, was the devil's work.
You're
Even
smoking
though
the
I still
devil's
had,
lettuce.
yeah. You know, they're very religious. They saw the path that my mom chose. They thought I was going to choose the exact same path. And I'm like, I'm still getting straight A's. My grades aren't slipping. I don't have friends. I don't go out. I'm home 24/7. I'm stressed from, schoolwork. This is my relief. They didn't like a 14-year-old deciding that. Up until I lived with my grandparents, I was in charge of my parenting. I made all my decisions because my mom wasn't mentally there. So I was upset when they tried to be a parent. Like, I've made my own decisions since I was 4. Plus the whole neurodivergent thing kicking on in. I more than likely have ODD as well, the oppositional defiance disorder.
Oh, I
That
could
it
totally
doesn't
see that.
matter if it does not matter if I know it's a bad idea for me. If someone of authority says no, I'm going to do it anyway. Screw you.
Yeah. ODD is definitely the
Well,
fuck authority
yeah,
disorder.
So that mixed
well,
in with ADHD, mixed in with um,
yeah. There's been times
autism.
where you have been like on the fence about something, and someone's like, "That's a really bad idea. You can't do
And they
that."
just made my decision.
Yeah.
100%. It's like hold my
I
non-existent
most
beer.
certainly
Um,
can do this.
yeah.
What do you
My
mean
freshman year,
can't?
my freshman year, my cousin moved from. So my grandparents have 5 kids. The youngest killed himself in the 80s. The oldest got away to Europe the second she could leave the house, and she didn't come back for 30 years.
Wow, she was like,
Um,
I'm not even going to share a continent with you.
she is Asperger's, and she is a licensed psychologist. She lived in Switzerland, and she has 2 daughters, and the oldest one was getting too much for her to handle. She was diagnosed as ADHD. She's a couple months younger than me, and she was being abusive to her younger sister, like pushing her downstairs. And my grandparents said, send her on over. They've raised a good like 5 or 6 out of 11 grandkids. Um, yeah, I wasn't the first grandkid they took in. The first one was my older cousin, which was a different sister's daughter. So freshman year, she came from Europe, not knowing any English, not knowing anything really, and came to live with us. And that was a huge adjustment. I finally was in the house alone without having any cousins. My older cousin, she used to kick and hit me if I would walk anywhere near her. If I tried to avoid her path, she'd get up and kick me harder because I made her get up. And I was finally in the house alone without any siblings, and I was excited. And then they spring this on, and I'm like, great, what is ADHD? And she was a lot. She wouldn't sleep in her own room. She tried to sleep in my room for a while, and I have to listen to something or watch something. Right now, my go to sleep movie is The Hobbit. It's playing all the time. My kids' go to sleep movie is Sing. It's been that for like 5 years. Yeah. And she's like, I can't sleep with this playing. I'm like, that's too bad. You're in my room. Can't sleep. Go in your room.
That's fair.
And yeah. Like, she wasn't just sleeping on the floor or anything. She's in my bed, snuggling me. And I didn't like it, but I'm like, whatever. As long as I have my TV, I'm fine. And after about 2 weeks of fighting with her, and my grandparents saying, just turn it off for her so she can sleep. I'm like, she has a freaking room. Why can't she sleep in it? She started sleeping on the floor of their bedroom. There were a lot of nights where my grandma would get out of bed to go to the bathroom and she'd trip over my cousin. But she was misdiagnosed. She found out as an adult that she is bipolar and not ADHD. She's on the right medication and she is doing fantastic. Misdiagnosis. She's doing completely fantastic now.
I mean, it is amazing what being properly medicated can do to someone.
Yes. Especially staying on the proper medications.
Yeah. And you definitely want to keep monitoring and make sure that they're still effective.
Yes, they can lose effectiveness. I have an aunt who is bipolar and oh goodness. She is a lot.
And also you yourself can change to where it's not that they become necessarily like you have a tolerance. It's just you need something else.
Chemistry changes.
Yeah.
Their chemistry changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
As we get older, brains develop. Even past when our brains are supposed to be fully developed, our chemistry changes.
Yeah. Yes. So it was definitely difficult. I had like a year and a half of not having any cousins and finally just thriving. And then I get this little thing sent to me from Europe. And it was difficult. She required a lot of focus and a lot of attention from my grandparents, which was nice because they didn't pay as much attention to me. So I was able to smoke more.
I was going to say, more weed for me!
Yes. But I got into high school and they made me take honors classes. And, you know, going from middle school to high school and switching and like keeping your honors classes, that's a whole different ball game. And I told them it was too hard. And they're like, well, you've done it just fine up until now. And I'm like, well, this is still too hard for me. Like getting these A's, I'm up till midnight doing homework when my friends they're done by 6, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotten really good at forging my grandma's signature because she had a tremor. And so I dropped all my honors classes and just went into regular classes, and I was getting like A's and B's, which I still felt was good.
Yeah.
But it was the dropping the honors classes, and they felt because I've done it up until then, there's no reason I shouldn't continue. They didn't really accept any neurodivergent. I was the difficult, picky kid. So, yeah.
Meanwhile,
so
you're talking about being able to forge your grandmother's signature. My ex-wife, her mom made a deal with the school that instead of using a signature, because my ex could forge the signature perfectly, that she started using a stamp instead, and told the schools but didn't tell anybody, and only told my then sister-in-law, older sister. Which, of course, they were thick as thieves. But hey, by the way, Mom's no longer signing the notes anymore. She's agreed to use the stamp that's located right here. Only made the forging easier.
Nice.
When at some point you and your brother started talking again, because that's how I met you. So her brother was a DJ in the rain. I was throwing raves. That's how I met him. I was a promoter. RIP to Surreal Chaos Productions. That was fun. But I remember, where's the transition from there
You
to
were breaking up a bit,
ending
Hoss.
over at the
Oh,
going over to the apartment where I met you, and so what happened with your relationship with your brother? Because your relationship with him is like that's like next level toxic.
we have never gotten along all that well. My junior year, my grandparents gave me a choice. I'm gonna get a water real quick. They gave me a choice to continue going to church every day. And I say every day, I mean actually every day.
7 days a week.
Yes. We went to seminary, which was an hour before school for high school. Couple hours on Tuesday evenings. Activities on Saturday, and then 3 hours on Sundays. And I said I don't want to go during the school week anymore. The 6 a.m. church. They said, go or get out. I chose to get out. They sent me to a Hispanic family that they actually sent my mom to when she was a teenager. And she was being unruly. That lasted about 5 months. And then I tried going to my dad's house. That did not last. So my senior year, I came home and I'm like, okay, my mom has been off drugs for 2 years, 2.5 years. I'm going to move in with her. And I moved in. And at the time, my brother was engaged to his ex, and she cheated on him. And he had his own room, but everything was hoarded, and I needed the room because I was going to be in school. So she told him he had to start sleeping on the couch because that was the only place that he could have slept. And he said no, so he said he was going to move to my dad's house. Living with my mom was so bad, we tried living with my dad multiple times, and it just wasn't worth it. He was worse, surprisingly. So he was there for my first half of senior year, and then he came back home. And he just was not a very nice person to me. I remember when
he knew better because he wasn't like that with other people around.
Nope, it was just
right.
He only did it when it was just me. I remember one day I was washing the dishes, because we were supposed to take turns washing dishes, which I didn't understand why, because my mom never fed me. I didn't really eat there. That's a whole different story. I'd go weeks without eating because she wouldn't buy food. But I was doing the dishes, mostly his, and he came up from behind me, pushed me on the ground, and just started kicking me. And when I told my mom that he did that, she's like, "No, he didn't." I'm like, "Yes, he did." "Oh, your brother would never do that." I'm like, "But he did." Um, she was at the time, she had quit using hard drugs my freshman year of high school, or yeah, freshman year of high school. And then she went down her Oxy road, where she was on
Yeah.
OxyContin and Norcos and all the legal narcotics, um, which she would give to my brother. Um, that year when he came back from my dad's, she kind of put him first instead of putting me first. She felt bad about sending him off to live with them when he was young. She doesn't know all that may or may not have happened when he was with my dad, and she blames herself. And then when he got back home, and she was on drugs, uh, he was trying to go to high school, and she kicked him out, and he never finished. And she just made it very hard for him to actually succeed. And then
It wasn't a nurturing environment for either of you. Even though she was like feeding him drugs, I remember he would guilt her into it. Whatever thing on him was super bad and hurting, she would feel bad and give him drugs. But it was more like we were talking about earlier. Like, here, I'm going to give you something to make you easier to deal with, not give you something to succeed. Right? It's kind of like a repeat of the 70s and the 80s with mental health. Pacifiers.
She would share her oxys with my brother, and he got hooked on all her prescription drugs. She has Hep C, so she got a lot of the good stuff. And I remember that one day he was threatening that he was going to kill himself unless she gave him pills. And I told my mom, I'm like, he's just using you to get your pills. He's not going to kill himself. He's not going to kill himself. She's like, but what if he does? I'm like, well, then he does. I got to the point where I'm very desensitized to suicide because everyone in my family is the wolf that cried suicide. My mom threatened it every week for like 5 or 6 years. My aunt has threatened it. My brother's threatened it.
I remember being on the phone with your mom for hours. No, but with her talking about that.
Yeah. And I'm very
and trying to be there and talk to your mom then. And you being
I'm very
like
cold.
It's bullshit.
It got to the point, there was one day where my mom was threatening suicide. I was playing an online game with my brother. He was in his room. I was on mine. We were on our headset. And my mom is threatening suicide. And I'm just, without missing a beat, I'm like, if you need someone to kick the chair, call me in.
Whoa.
And she's like, that is a horrible thing to say to me. I'm going to go tell your brother. I'm like, go ahead. He's laughing. I hear him right now.
Yeah.
I'm very...
No chill.
I'm very insensitive with, I don't mean to be. It's just, I don't have that empathy type thing. I remember
you have empathy. I've seen you show empathy to people. It is not that you're incapable of empathy. I don't want people to think that. It's
manipulative empathy. Like, exactly. They're manipulating the situation. I'm like, if you're going to kill yourself, do it.
Yeah, you're not going to play people's games. Like, you have zero tolerance for that. I don't want our listeners to think that you're an empathetic person, because that's not the case.
Oh no. It when your mom threatens suicide every week for 8, 9 years
Yeah, yeah,
from the time you're like 13 and up, and she's still alive when you're in your 20s, it kind of loses its appeal. It
yeah.
loses its
It's it sounds like you started
point.
getting that whole I'm going to call your bluff by telling you to shit or get off the pot.
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
I'm like, well, if you're going to do it, do it. Um, and
Yeah, I
I'm like,
remember. I remember one time she
your
threatened it,
brother didn't.
and your response to your mom. Your mom was talking about was I was talking to your mom, and she's talking about she's going to kill herself, and Alice is in the background. If those listening haven't figured out, Alice and I used to date. Um,
Yeah.
in the and and Alice is in the background. No balls, like. Like you're not helping, you know.
Was this the
Um,
time that we were walking through the mall and she's trying to like say how she's going to kill herself?
there were a lot of times
There
that
were.
they kind of melded together.
It was a lot. She did it so she could gain control of the situation. She did it because she felt she failed as a mom. I didn't love her, which I didn't. And she was trying to see if I loved her. For the first couple years that she threatened suicide, I try and talk her down, and at some point it stopped.
Yeah,
Um,
but you grew up around a lot of manipulation, so you saw that type of manipulation from your mom, trying to get. She's trying to get people to show that they care by trying to interfere. Later on in life, when she stopped being that type of toxic person, she would often still bring up whatever ailment she had, so people felt bad about her for her ailments. And then you
uh,
have your grandpa, who would you've seen learn from your grandpa that you can manipulate a situation through money and power. You know, you've seen how your brother would show you that you can manipulate, manipulate by throwing fits and trying to play on people's empathy. Like you're surrounded by that type
so
of stuff.
my senior year, my dad, when I moved in, he was supposed to pay 300 a month in child support. He didn't want to pay my mom, so she took him back to court. And that 300 a month was based on a 1989 divorce. She took him back in 2003, and it went from 300 a month to 815 a month. Um, she got 815 a month, had no mortgage, had no huge bills or anything. And in the early 2000s, 815 was a lot of money. She spent at least 100 or 200 of that was Gatorade and ice cream for her. It
Chocolate.
was, yes,
And
it was cigarettes and
when did she
alcohol
go?
for my brother
When did she take him back to court?
in 2003.
Just to give you an idea of what happened there, the inflation. Just so you know, 1980. You said it was 89 was the first.
Mm-hmm.
89. Let's see here. So in 89,
Mm-hmm.
$300 became $445 in 2003. So yeah, it wasn't just inflation that adjusted. They went after him a little harder.
Well, he
Yeah.
also had a better paying job than he did in the
That'll
80s.
do it.
He was an architect. He designed the steel in like tall buildings. Um, but all of that money went towards my mom's like candy and sugar addiction and my brother's whatever my
Cigarettes.
brother wanted. I didn't get food. I didn't get clothes. I got the internet. That's all I got.
And only
Um,
because you needed it for school, right, or something like that.
Only because I needed it for school and my grandparents made her.
Made her. Yeah.
That money was supposed to be for her benefit, not for me. And So I started hanging out with my brother's friends. Um, and I was 17 and I'm going to his friends' houses for the weekends because they fed me. And that was the only time during the week that I'd get like an actual meal. Um, and I'd go back to my mom's house and she'd just yell at me and say horrible things. And she tried kicking me out my senior year. Um, the same thing she did to my brother because we went to a continuation school where as long as we were enrolled before we were 18, we could take as long as we needed to graduate. There was like a 24-year-old in my class. Um, and he did not graduate that year either. um, but she tried kicking me out, and I rode my bike from Elk Grove to Carmichael. That's like 25 miles.
Yeah, that is a long ride.
I got kind of tired around like American River Drive area and had to take a little break at a house that I knew before going back to my grandparents. And my mom called me and she's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm at Grandma and Grandpa's." She's like, "Well, did they come pick you up?" She had popped, I don't know how many oxys, and was in like an oxy coma for a few hours before she realized I was gone. Um, and then my aunt, her sister, the one that from Europe, she had moved out here with her other daughter by then. And she's like, "Well, this isn't going to work. She needs to go to school. She needs to finish her education. You're going to let her live there until school is up." And so I went back home at my mom's. And the morning that I was to graduate, there was a note taped on my door to pack my shit and leave because I was no longer in high school. Um, so it just wasn't healthy. She did not have a good handle on her mental health until about 4 or 5 years ago. Up until 4 or 5 years ago, she was very toxic and just.
It was the boys, like you said, the boys were a big part of it, right? So you had your kids, and it's almost, it seems like overnight, your mom, who was kind of like this really dark spot in your life, became the grandma to your kids that you wish you
it
would have had as mom growing up, right?
it so in 2015 my brother got brain cancer and my mom prayed and said that if Jesus or God healed him, she would go back to church. And he's been in remission for a few years now. And as far as I know, he's still healthy. Um, and then she found Jesus, and I think her finding Jesus was what helped her. She was able to do therapy and counseling through the church, and she got a very late in life ADHD diagnosis and got put onto the right ADHD medications. Um, and that was around the time that she started to get better. Um, I was on basically no contact with her for about 4 or 5 months towards the end of my pregnancy with my youngest, Jackson. Um, she was toxic again, and she didn't see or understand why I didn't love her, is basically what she said. Like, I loved her, but only because she's my mom. I kind of have to. she didn't understand that there was no fixing everything that had been done in my childhood. We were never going to have that mother-daughter bond that she wanted. So we went no contact for a bit.
But
I moved.
I mean, just because
and
you can't have that mother-daughter bond doesn't mean you can't have something, as long as things are healthy.
She wanted to force that mother-daughter bond, and
No.
like, I am not a hugging person. I don't mind hugs. Like, I'll hug strangers. I'll hug random people. I won't hug my family. I cringe every time, like, my family, not counting my kids.
I was going to say,
not the
kids. Yeah, no,
not
because
my
kids.
kids.
You're always hugging your kids. Like, you
Yeah,
have so
not
many
my
pictures
kids.
on Instagram with you hugging your kids. It's all, your whole Instagram
Yes.
is you and your kids.
They have me hugged out, but like my grandma, my grandpa, my mom, my dad, any family member, some of my cousins, I don't
Well, it wasn't an
like
emotionally
it.
warm environment at all. Affection
No,
was not in their vocabulary.
it was, but they just thought that everyone who they hugged, like one of my cousins, were just going through that teen phase where they didn't want hugs versus they're neurodivergent and they may not necessarily want that hug.
Yeah.
Because no one in my family is really huggers. My mom liked hugs. She would hug my grandpa. They used to kiss each other. Like, they kiss each other on the mouth, which I thought was weird. I'm like, I'm not kissing some old guy. But she wanted that relationship, that you see on TV. And I'm like, we're never going to have that.
That
You're
ship
lucky to
sailed
even
a long time ago.
She never really took responsibility. I would tell her things that I remember from my childhood, and instead of saying, I don't remember that, or I have different memories, she just said, that never happened. I'm like, no, it happened.
You may have been out of your gourd and don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
when I first asked her about her mom, when we first started talking,
I probably said I fucking hate her.
Yeah. And
I
she's
hate
like, she's like, my mom chose drugs over me.
her.
I was like, oh, well, that's a hell of an intro line. Okay.
I mean, to a 17-year-old that has no clue what addiction is, that's basically what happened in my mind. Even today,
No,
I
it's accurate.
still don't understand addiction. Like, I have done a lot of drugs and a lot of addicting drugs, and if I decide I'm done, that is dead to me.
Some people have that ability.
The same way with people. She's the same way with people.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, when she's done with somebody, like there's no formal goodbye. It is like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Poof.
Well,
gone.
there's no real formal introductions in my life either, obviously.
Yeah. This is true. Yeah. Yeah. The end caps aren't strong.
So, me actually getting a formal introduction to you is really unusual.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the formal introduction is I drove it.
Yeah.
You did. You really did.
Yeah. Yep. No, there's some guidance that needs to take place there.
Like, I'll show up with I went out for the first time in almost a year over the summer for my birthday. A friend of my mom's watched my kids for me so I could go out and celebrate with my friend. And they are. And we ended up going to a karaoke bar to visit my friend that worked there. And we're talking. And it was a good like 4 or 5 minutes before he's like, "Hi, I'm Ryan," to my friend. I didn't introduce them.
It was the girls,
I
right?
just it was just Lina.
They had met before. They'd had to have met at my place.
Not for like a decade.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
It I
She
mean,
does
it
look
was at
different.
least
Yeah.
yeah.
People grow up.
And meanwhile, I'm sitting here thinking the reason that maybe Oz drove that introduction with us is like, these are two people who are important to me in my life, and I would like it if they got along.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Alice and I are
I'm
definitely close.
a very acquired taste.
Hey, I just saw the supernatural stuff on your vehicle. I'm like, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that was the first thing I commented about, too. Oz was hey, there's supernatural stuff on that vehicle.
Yep. Yeah, I had no idea what they were talking about.
I have no filter, and I don't necessarily understand or realize every time I'm being rude. Like, there are a lot of times where I do know I'm being rude and I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of
the
times
truth.
where I don't understand that I'm being rude.
Yeah, you don't have a whole lot of fucks to give. That is for sure.
I don't.
No. People wore that out of you a long time ago.
They did.
She's all, "Aw, you think I give a fuck? That's cute."
Yeah, so there's like, I have a very small circle, but it's a circle I know that they're going to be there for me no matter what.
Well,
because they've put up with all my bullshit.
For what it's worth, I've only met you the one other time, and I took an immediate liking to you because I could tell you're going to tell as you see it how you feel, and I'm going to know exactly where I stand, and I really value that. A lot of people can't stand that.
Are awesome. People with trauma are awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If you're too like quote unquote normal, I can't be around you. It's not gonna go well.
Yeah, like Alice many times has said some borderline kind of offensive shit, and she doesn't mean it menacingly, and she has the same look, and she says the same thing when she looks, and when she can see the look on everybody's face, she's like, "What?" Like a little kid, like, "What I said?" Like Steve Urkel, "Did I do that?" And it's pretty hilarious. Where especially like people haven't been around her enough to pick up on it.
I'm basically my mom when it comes to social etiquette. I just can't take my teeth out yet.
Oh God.
Keyword yet.
No Jolly Ranchers for you. Yeah.
All right, I'm just getting this Jolly Rancher here.
So let's fast forward a little bit. We talked a little bit about your kids. What being through the childhood you did, and your kids aren't an accident by any means. Like you really needed to work on having your kids, and most kids today can't say that there's any proof that you wanted.
My kids were 100% planned to the point of they were conceived through at-home artificial insemination. There's a kit called Stork OTC that is like $100 a pop. And we bought 11 of them. And Aiden, it took 2 cycles to conceive. And then we tried again when he was about 6 months old for a few cycles, and it didn't work. And my ex said, okay, I want Aiden to have a sibling. He's getting older. We had 1 or 2 of those contraception, the storks available. Basically, it's a turkey baster method where finish into a little cup, plop it on in. It's disgusting. And it's, oh gosh. for sensory wise issues, it was awful. Um, and so I'm like, okay, if you want Aiden to have a sibling, you got to do it right now. He called my bluff, and I threw a cup at him, like, here, tell me when you're done. And I left the room. And like 10, 15 minutes later, I get a text to come in. And I'm like, okay, well, the last time we were trying for 6 months. It didn't happen. We have one cycle. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'll have one kid. I'll fine. Yeah, it didn't work that way. I got pregnant that one time. um, Lucky me. So they're 100% planned.
How did having the boys, like living in the environment that you did, seeing what a family could be like, and then I know later on you got introduced to healthier families. I'd like to think that my family was fairly healthy. The relationship that you saw that my mom had with
Well, I mean, then there was the AJ fiasco. We won't dive into that one.
yeah, but we'll save that for another show. But they
I dated his brother too.
Yeah, you know.
And you didn't have another brother or a couple nephews.
Jesus.
Just the whole family.
Yeah, well, I mean, the twins might be into it, but they're kind of selective.
I'm okay.
Sisters, girls.
I knew them when they were in like 8th grade. I'm good. I'm good. That'd be weird.
What isn't kind of in your life, though? So being around really unhealthy, having a really unhealthy family experience, did you make any conscious decisions on how things were going to be different for the boys?
Did
you plan them out, but did you plan out their life and their upbringing at all?
I planned to really just kind of let them raise themselves a lot. Like, obviously I'm going to be active, but they make their own decisions in just about everything. I was not prepared at all for having neurotypical or neurodivergent kids. No one ever is. And up until about 3 years ago, I didn't know I was neurodivergent. I just thought I was peculiar and quirky.
She's different.
There's a lot of texture issues that I can't handle. I like to be on time. I get physically angry if my schedule is thrown off. I thought it was normal because everyone else in my family was a lot like that. I thought I would get physically angry when my schedule was thrown off because my mom is a druggie and she always bailed on me. So I thought that was the trigger.
Like, not just physically angry, like you become quickly irate if you're not going to.
Oh yeah. If I'm not 30 minutes early, I'm late.
Yeah. Yeah, whenever you've come to any function I've put together, like we're still setting up and you're like, hi. Like, what?
We said 1 o'clock. Yeah, I know. You said 1 o'clock. It's 12:30. Let's do this.
Basically, yeah.
So what you have to do is just give her a half hour later than everybody else, so she shows up with everyone.
There you go.
I've told them to do that.
Yeah, my mom was the exact opposite. Like, literally, family functions, if it started at 5, everybody would tell my mom it started at 3, and she would get there at 7. Like,
wow,
that was my mom.
My ex, we couldn't be on time to save our lives. We were always 15 minutes to 30 minutes late, except for the 2 times I adjusted the time to tell her, and then that was the 2 times that she ever wanted to actually be on time. And I'm like, I planned for this, and you're ruining this too.
Yeah, I just thought everyone had little quirks like that, you know. Everyone went through phases in their life where all they ate was croutons and Otter Pops for 7 months.
I mean, I like croutons and I like Otter Pops. I don't know that I could eat that for 7 months.
I can.
Yep.
I can eat pizza for 7 months, but I mean, you can vary the pizza.
Yeah, no, it's very specific. I go through beef jerky phases too, where I just eat beef jerky for 6 months. And then at the end of the 6 months, I can't eat it for like a year. I've recently restarted my Chex Mix thing again. Last year when I was on my Chex Mix kick, because I don't like all the Chex Mix, I normally pre-sort them. And one day I was eating it in the dark, and I got a Chex that I did not like, and it threw me off to the point where I had to immediately throw all the bags of Chex Mix away and start a new hyper-focused food. And I could not go back to Chex Mix until almost a year passed.
Just because you had one Chex Mix that wasn't
and it
right.
wasn't even like a full piece Chex Mix. It was like a crumb that I popped in my mouth, and I wasn't expecting it, and it pissed me off. I could not.
Just can't.
I thought that was normal.
You're a fucking wheat.
Yeah.
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 The brown ones, those are her enemy in Chex Mix.
Yeah.
The rye.
Quite honestly, the wheat ones really, I don't care for the wheat
I don't like
ones.
the wheat Chex.
I mean, I could eat them mixed in with others, but by itself, forget it.
Yeah, I can't. I'm sitting there with my phone is a flashlight trying to get the right shapes and everything. That's another thing. I can't eat certain shaped noodles. I was the picky kid, and my grandma just said, okay, you can eat what you can cook. And there was a lot of top ramen and rice in my life because that's what I could cook.
Yeah.
I still remember.
Yeah, when we dated, it was rice. She'd make rice and cream of mushroom.
Yep.
Like that was like her version of it was her version of gourmet.
You remember when I made Thanksgiving meal and you opened it up and it's like fucking lunch meat?
Yeah.
Or when I started a fire in the oven, that was fun.
Cooking was not one of her fortes when she was younger.
I'm good now.
I've never started a fire in the kitchen. My son's dog came over and started a fire in my kitchen.
Sure, it was the dog who ate the homework.
No. We were hanging out on the back patio, and all of a sudden I started noticing a flickering light in the kitchen. What he did is that he tried to get up on the stove, and we have one of those flat surface stoves where you don't have the metal grills. It's just that flat surface. Yeah. And there was a pizza box on there, and he hit the burner and turned it on, and it caught the pizza box on fire. So yeah, no, it was the dog.
Yeah,
Now we could have been more responsible, but still.
I was making a meatloaf. I had asked my dad for the recipe because that was one thing that he made that I liked.
A good meatloaf is hard to beat.
I decided I wanted to alter it a little bit and make it a little more juicy. And I remember I called Austin because I'm, 19. I don't know what a fire extinguisher is or anything. And I'm like, there's like a fire. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, I was making a meatloaf. I closed the oven, so it's not coming out yet. But can you come home? He was upstairs because his aunts, thank goodness, lived pretty close to us. And he runs down, and there's just like flames coming out of the oven.
Yeah.
That had to be a terrifying sight.
What about the cake?
That was genius, okay? That could have happened to anybody.
That's how you know a good story's about to start. This could happen to anybody.
She's the reason I have diabetes.
Okay, so you know when you get cookies, they have like M&Ms on it.
Oh yeah,
I
I
don't
love
like
those.
M&Ms. I don't like M&Ms. I like Skittles.
To each their own. I like them both.
So I wanted to make a Skittles cake. It sounded delicious. I was like 18. We were living in Rancho Cordova. I didn't have money for eggs, so I went to the store and I put the amount of eggs I needed in my pocket and left. And then I made the cake, and I didn't just use like a tiny bag. I used like a 2-pound bag of Skittles, and I just dumped it in and then put it in the oven. I
With the
didn't
cake.
think
Yeah. Cake
it
mix, yeah.
it logically made sense to me. They were supposed to be on the top like with cookies. Well, gravity and baking and
And melting and
yeah. So the entire bottom was like this sludge crack.
I was gonna say it's just a
Like
giant
that.
flattened Skittle.
Yeah.
so imagine
I didn't eat it. It was disgusting.
imagine cheesecake, how cheesecake has a crust
Yeah.
that goes all the way down. It was that, but Skittle, because it
Ooh.
had all sank and melted.
And so I'd come home from work and Austin was like eating at the top of it and he ate the entire top and I'm like, oh,
Feel like
okay,
that was still
well,
good cake.
at least someone's enjoying it because I'm not eating that monstrosity.
Yeah,
Um,
that was
and
an
then
experience.
he finished the top level and I'm like, okay. And then a couple days go by. I'm like, it's still disappearing. He was like slowly working his way through eating that.
Yeah,
That was my wedding cake for my first wedding. I just every day I'd go like I constantly just take it a little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit.
yeah.
I didn't get to finish my wedding cake. My in-laws put it next to the pico de gallo. And when I went to eat, like the pico de gallo flavor like went into the cake. It
Ew.
seeped in.
Ew.
Yeah.
Now
I ate a little bit, but
we actually saved the top for a year, and then our 1 year anniversary we went ahead and had some. It was actually pretty good, to be honest.
yeah, we didn't do
Nice.
that. We didn't celebrate our 1 year anniversary anyway. Yeah, that Skittles cake could have happened to anyone.
Oh,
Well, I mean, I
Um,
made an M&M pizza once, so yeah, it could happen to anyone.
I grew up
what?
in a very wealthy family. So, like, poor
Only the
people cooking was kind of beyond me.
only the finest
Um,
Skittles delicacies for you.
The limited edition
so,
Skittles that you never heard of.
so I'm like 18 or 19 at this point, and I'm making Kool-Aid. And I can't understand why my Kool-Aid just tastes disgusting. I'm like, it must be the flavor I'm buying. And my friend Crystal, she's like, "Why is your Kool-Aid is disgusting? How much sugar did you put in it?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I
Yeah,
thought it was like
she was a
I
pretty.
thought it was like Tang, where you just put the powder in. I thought it was the same, and I have not been adding any sugar to
Yeah,
any of my Kool-Aid things, and I'm like, it's not
that's
in the packet. I thought it was in the packet.
yeah,
Um,
see. I learned to make Kool Aid in the hood. They're like, how much sugar are you supposed to put in? You put in enough sugar until it stops dissolving, and that's the correct amount of sugar.
My
Like,
family had
And now,
gardeners and cleaning ladies. Like,
and I was just about to say, and I think that Alice may be blaming the Skittles cake for his diabetes, but I'm thinking it might be the Kool-Aid.
could be.
it could. Well, my mom didn't buy a whole lot of Kool-Aid when I was growing up.
It's like, you know what?
That was-
If you use warm water, you can saturate it with even more sugar, and then put it in the refrigerator and let it cool down so it's super saturated.
Yeah, make simple syrup Kool-Aid. Ooh, super syrup Kool-Aid. I'm diabetic. Don't tell me that shit.
Damn it! Now I want to try that. And I'm diabetic too.
So
I'm not, but I don't eat any sugar.
For me, it wasn't because I ate sugar. It's genetics. I was screwed.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm just fat. You know, it's not genetics for me. It's no, kinda. No, my body type. I'm built to be big.
I've lost 15 pounds since the beginning of the year, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Oh, nice. Good on you, man. You could have him back. I think I got him.
I'm usually the one collecting them, but now I actually my double chin's mostly gone.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So switching gears back to the kids, how did having the kids change your life? 'Cause
Having
I remember
the
I
kids,
met you and your ex before you had the kid. I met your ex before, and like we met at Taco Bell, and you told me you guys were getting married, and I was like,
yeah, I thought I
really?
found someone normal. I mean,
Hmm,
prospectively, considering what my family life was, his parents were still married. They still talked to everyone in their family.
yeah, they were
Most of my
super active in the
family,
church.
most of my family I hadn't seen in a decade. Um, so I'm like, okay, well, strong values. I wanted to get out of my mom's house. I couldn't stand living with her any longer. Like, well, I guess he'll do. Um,
No, he
and
won't.
so
She's just like,
Yeah,
yeah,
he
good
didn't.
enough.
yeah. When I met him, I was like, "Are you sure?" Like, I didn't say that, but I was like, okay." Like the dude, I mean, he was a kid
Yeah,
compared to me because I'm what 10 years older than you, something like that.
yeah,
No, not quite that,
nine and a
but
half,
yeah,
nine and a half,
and he
and
seemed
I'm
like a
five
kid to
years
me,
older than him.
and he was a
It,
kid, but he looked older than me. And I was like, "What is this Benjamin
yeah,
Button shit going on here?" I was like, like I was like,
I,
"All right."
I, I met him in 2014. I had ended a 4-year traumatic relationship in 2012 and moved back in with my mom. And I thought it would get better because I was an adult, and it just got worse living with her. And I wanted out, so I took my first out that I could. This guy asked me to marry him. I'm like, score! I can get out of my mom's house. Fuck it, let's get married.
Like, I'm not
Um,
marrying you because I love you. I'm marrying you because you're an escape.
he was a hard worker. He seemed to have good family, like, background, morals, all these things
So he had a lot of things that you
that,
were
He's
saw
checking
as
a lot.
positive.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
yeah, he was checking a lot
yeah,
of boxes because I was like, kind of like when he wasn't around, I was like, "So tell me about this dude." Like, because I'm fairly protective of Alice. Like, she calls me about some bullshit at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm fitting to put somebody in traction.
you have
Um, and
basically gone to be a father figure in my life, which is weird, our dynamic and everything, but
yeah,
I'm
it's
an
definitely changed.
orphan.
It's
You are
become
my
weird.
adoptive dad now. Um,
Yeah, that's weird. Very
go to the
weird when you
store.
say it out
Dad!
loud. Oh, oh, yeah, we went to the grocery store one time. So those of you, well, nobody can see her, but she looks very young today, and she's in her 30s. Um,
So when
she
I'm
back when we
18,
were
I
dating,
look
she
like I'm
was
like
legal,
14.
but Yeah, and I don't have a thing for younger chicks. Just put that out there. That ain't my thing. It just we clicked. I was weird back then too. We
Happened.
anyway. She's wearing a onesie to the grocery store at like 2 o'clock in the morning before
We're
they were
getting
popular, and we're
we're
checking
getting
out.
croutons and otter pops.
Yeah, 'cause she wants fucking croutons and otter pops, and I'm like, fine, we'll go to the store. Let's get them. And I kiss her in the fucking in in the fucking grocery store. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, but the grocery store is full. I don't understand. But I kiss her, and she looks up at me and she says, "I thought you're not supposed to do that in public, Daddy." So
I thought it was
everybody
hilarious.
thinks I'm kidding. She thought it was hilarious, but everybody thinks that
It
this dude is
was.
kissing his 13-year old daughter. Yeah,
At least I
that's
didn't do it when we went to the store with your actual daughter. I held my tongue.
oh
That was
I
messed
held my
up.
tongue.
yeah. She met my daughter when how old was she?
She was
in high
9.
school.
No, she was
Like
9.
yeah. Oh,
She was 9
oh
or
yeah,
10.
no, not high school. Yeah, or middle. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And she
She's taller than me.
yeah, she towered over because she's 4'10", like in shoes.
And
Like
3/4.
When you're
In
that
tall
short,
shoes.
you want to make sure every inch counts, every quarter inch counts.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
but so
yeah.
I was asking her about him, and she basically ran off his pedigree to me, and he was checking the boxes. Came from a decent family. They have a strong standing within their church, which, for the most part, in my experience, her family aside, means a lot. Um, the it's my best friend's family is in the same community. So I've learned a little bit through that, and um, they have and so I'm like, okay, well, I mean, at least she found somebody who isn't like fucking like defective in a bad way. I don't know a better way to put it. Like he's gonna treat her right. And then I was like, I just really wanted it to work, but my gut feeling was like, nah, something's not right
He
with
wasn't
this guy.
he wasn't like the love of my life. He was someone that you could be comfortable with, you know. He was cool to hang around, watch
Yeah,
TV with. It was
I and I think that was kind of apparent when I was meeting. Like I was like, she's with him, but she doesn't love him. Like she's not.
he was
Like
a
I've seen you
means to
goo
the
goo
end to
over
get
guys
away
before, and this
from
was not.
he was to get away from my mom.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
so we within the first 6 months of marrying him, I was pregnant with my oldest, Aiden. And the marriage just wasn't working out at all.
It's very
And I
Peter Pumpkin
had,
Eater.
yeah, I had Aiden, and I was a completely different parent when it was just Aiden. Um, Before Jackson was born, I didn't yell, I didn't blow up. I was a very calm, collected parent. And then I got pregnant with Jackson, and something in my brain chemistry just switch flipped, and I was no longer that person.
Well, Aiden and Jax are two totally different beasts.
Aiden
Except
is shy and timid and
just
sweet, and
sweet as pumpkin pie.
Jackson he is a sweetheart, but he's a Tasmanian devil. He is a
Yeah,
wild child. He is the epitome of ADHD.
yeah,
You know those like squeeze aliens where you squeeze them and their eyes bug out? He does that with Aiden. He tries to squeeze Aiden to where his eyes would pop out. He doesn't do it as much. So you have this sensitive child and this overbearing one that doesn't understand any consequence at all. And it gets very trying. So having Aiden got diagnosed with autism in April of 2019, nonverbal. At the time, he was about 3 when he got diagnosed. He was 22 pounds, and his, 4-month-old brother was like 17 pounds. They wear the same size diapers. They still wear the same size diapers. They can wear the same pants. And Aiden just wasn't talking at all. And it got very frustrating because most kids are able to tell you what they want, what they need, and he just didn't. So I started teaching him like basic sign, like signing for milk. He was at preschool and he was signing green. And to sign green, you just make a G and go like this. And I didn't know what he's doing. He's just going like this, like this. And he's at school, and he's learning all these signs, and they're not telling me what signs he's learning. Do you know how hard it is to reverse search sign language?
It sounds
difficult.
challenging.
I'm typing what he's doing with his hand. I'm like, what sign is this? And I'm typing all these things. And finally I figured out he's signing the color green. I'm like, okay. So I learned all the colors. And then I associated those colors with bags of chips that he likes to eat in stores. So if he wants to go to Target, he signs red. If he wants to go to Joann's, signs green. Walmart is blue. Same goes with his chips. What color chips do you want? The red ones. Perfect. So I taught him very, very basic sign just to make things a little bit easier. And then about towards the end of 2019, that year he almost died also in the beginning of the year. He got norovirus about a week after I gave birth to Jackson. And he was throwing up and not replenishing his intake. And he all his sugar reserves. And one day, like Kenny was watching him because in the room with Jackson.
Oh,
I think she got frozen there.
Yeah.
I'm blaming the weather.
Yeah.
Bad.
Hopefully it'll catch up. It'll probably get that whole burst of like and done.
Right. Yeah. Maybe have her. I don't know if you can hear us. Maybe drop off of your computer and join with your cell phone.
I'm gonna send a chat here. Oh.
Yep. There she goes. Yep. With your phone. So, yeah, Alice and I have a lot of history, and the seeing the way that she grew up, and then the mom that she's become, motherhood has been rough on her with neurodivergent children, but everything, her schedule, everything is about her kids. She will not do anything that will upset their schedule because it has such an impact on the kids. She's
She's
very
coming back
thoughtful in
now.
that way. She got an invite, so the there you go. Yeah,
Ah,
We hear you loud and clear.
okay.
there we go. We can hear you. Yep. I was just talking about how, like, in the beginning, when neurodivergent children, things are difficult, but you've completely formed your entire life around taking care of them,
Yeah.
making sure their schedule
Oh,
stays
we have a very
consistent.
strict schedule.
Like how you
Uh,
even got invited to a Thanksgiving dinner, and because that's what I was starting to say is she even got invited to a Thanksgiving dinner, and the dinner had to be moved earlier, just so that the kids' schedules wouldn't be impacted. So not even for special events, like her every minute of her life is like scheduled out in that way to make sure her
mhm.
kids get exactly what they need.
Mhm. Um, so what was the last thing you heard me say about Aiden?
Um,
Just started breaking up so bad I don't even remember because I was like,
Okay.
yeah,
So he got the norovirus
yeah, we were
and
talking about that.
he went to crawl towards me on the bed and he couldn't
oh, that's
do
right. You
it at
said he
all.
used up all of his reserves.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he couldn't open his eyes, nothing. This is, a week after I had Jackson. And I told Kenny, I'm like, your parents need to get over here right now to watch Jackson. We need to get him into the ER right now. And he's like, no, I think that he's okay. I'm like, my week-old child has um, better
Like motor skills.
head bobble movement than my 3-year-old. No. Um, and so we went in. I wasn't allowed to drive because I had just had a C-section. And so we get there and there's no parking. I'm like, great. I'm like, okay, well, let us out here. And I'm carrying Aiden, who's definitely heavier than a newborn.
Oh,
After my C-section, I hadn't had any pills, nothing, no pain pills. We just left. He couldn't keep his eyes open. And there was about 12 doctors just surrounding him, poking him, prodding him. And he
that'd be
didn't wake up
terrifying.
through any of it. His blood sugar got down to a 4.
Oh,
Um,
damn.
Wow.
yeah, they said if we had waited any longer, he would have died. So that was in January, and then he got
The mom knows.
diagnosed. He got diagnosed with autism in the end of April. And then it was around, I want to say August, that I noticed Jackson doing a lot of the same behaviors that Aiden started showing. He wasn't copying Aiden's behaviors because by this time Aiden had already stopped those behaviors. And Jackson started headbutting any surface he could. Aiden did that, but only when he was angry. Jackson did it just because. I always had a joke with my mom, because when I had given birth to Jackson, we were still on no contact. And then everything with Aiden happened. And we were at the hospital, and my ex's parents were watching Jackson, and they kept asking how long it was going to take because they needed to get home to their dog. I'm like, all right, I'll call my mom and see if she can come switch out. So you can go home to your precious freaking dog, whatever. So I call my mom and she is like, well, I'm making soup with Pam. Can it wait? And I told her everything that was going on. She's like, all right, I'll have Pam make the soup. Text me your address. I'm gonna go and be with Jackson. That was probably one of the first time that my mom ever just
Dropped
chose
everything.
me. Yeah.
Dropped
Uh,
everything. And it kind of grew into that,
she-
right? With your mom and the
yes.
kids.
She Our relationship was still very rocky, but because she was doing so much with and for the kids, I let her stay in my life because it was almost like her second chance at being a parent. Um,
And she did
she,
really good at it. She really started. Unfortunately, she passed.
so
Um,
she lost her
but
house. She didn't pay the property taxes. She lost her house, and she moved into the apartment directly across from me for about a year. Um,
yeah, that's
and
dedication.
so, yeah,
Yeah,
like
there's a redemption story there. You
like
know,
I get overwhelmed with the kids. I'm like, okay, go to grandma's. I open the door and just send my 3-year-old and 6-month-old across to grandma's. Um,
But she
and those
was
kids
really
became.
receptive to that, is what it sounds
Oh
like.
yeah, she made those kids her life,
the,
right?
those kids were what kept her alive as long as she was. She had a lot of health problems. She had Parkinson's,
Mm.
and it was still somewhat early, but it was late enough to where you could tell. Um, Plus, she had Hep C, cirrhosis of the liver. She had a lot.
Well, they cured her Hep C, right? She's
Yes,
one of the people who had,
she did take the treatment for Hep C. Um,
but it had already wreaked so much damage to her
yes,
body for having
yeah,
it for like 20 years.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, when you have Hep C and cirrhosis, that's two things attacking your liver at once. I can only imagine what
Yeah.
it does to the liver.
like in my mind, she was a cockroach. She was going to survive the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And
I think we all believe that.
like
No, only Cher will survive the apocalypse.
even when she called me, she actually called me on my ex's birthday when he was over, and she started singing happy birthday to him, and she knows I hate listening to her sing. I hate her voice. And I'm like, seriously, why are you singing? Stop. And then she's like, this is the last time you're ever going to hear it. I'm like, what now? What is troubling you now? And then she's
Hmm.
like, well, I have pneumonia and I'm not going to make it. I'm like, no, this isn't happening. No, you're not getting taken out by pneumonia. Um, Especially because of what happened before. So in April of last year, she fell in the bathtub and impaled herself on like the spout and the little
Oh, God!
water up
Yeah.
and down
The
shower
shower.
bathtub mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said she hung there like dead meat on a hook for about an hour before she could get herself off to call 911. Like her bathtub looked like a murder scene.
I'm
And
sure. Especially if she was there for an hour bleeding for being impaled.
Yeah.
and yeah. I'm sure you've seen Frozen.
Yeah?
So the nurse calls me and she's like, your mom has been impaled. And I just start busting up laughing because I just imagine Olaf from Frozen, like, oh, look, I've been impaled. And she's like, no, your mom was impaled. And I'm like, I get that.
See, now there's that, the people with trauma's love of dark humor. It just came out right there.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm busting up laughing to this trauma nurse who is at the emergency room. And she's like, no, your mom has been impaled. She punctured her lung. I'm like, oh, you mean she actually has a hole? Like I didn't process it. And this was in April, and she was in the hospital for about 3 weeks, and they sent her home. She was healing. Everything was fine. And then she developed a cough. The weekend before she died, I went to visit my grandma's hairdresser. I'm really close with her. I've known her since I was 3. And she usually cuts my hair because she knows I can't afford to get a haircut. And she just butchered my hair. She took off like 7 or 8 inches that I'd been growing for the last 8 years. And then she cut Jackson's hair to just get it out of his eyes. And she butchered it so bad. It looked like he cut his own hair. And I call my mom up crying. I'm like, she ruined our hair. We're supposed to get family pictures done 2 weeks from now, and our hair is butchered. And she's like, calm down, make an appointment. I will pay for all of you to get haircuts. And that was on May 28th of last year. Ironically, that would have been my eighth wedding anniversary. And my divorce was final 2 weeks before that. And then on June 5th, she called from the emergency room. She went in a couple days before, saying that she had pneumonia and that she wouldn't be making it any longer. I'm like, you have been saying you're going to die since I was 14. You're not going to die. And she died on the 8th of June. So it has been a lot. Jackson, at the time, for the last, like his whole life, basically, up until the time she died, he basically lived with her. Because them together is like oil and water. They seek each other out, and they're just playing off each other, and it drives me absolutely insane, especially because I wasn't allowed to be a kid back when I was a kid. Kids are to be seen, not heard, and if you're seen, you better be seen not moving. I was taught that kids are not supposed to move, and now I have 2 kids that are moving.
So basically, it's like that old Bill Cosby routine. These are not the same people I grew up with. These are old people trying to get into heaven.
Yeah, and so it was a lot. And my mom understood that. She went through that. She sent my brother to live with my dad because she couldn't handle both of us together. And she never understood why. She's like, oh, well, I guess it's because you were neurodivergent. Okay, makes sense. And so Jackson would stay.
She really came a long way fast.
Oh, yes. She rearranged her entire life to raise my kids with me. Jackson would spend
It was your total support system. Yeah.
3 to 4 days a week at her house. And then she would bring Jackson back and take Aiden for a day or 2. So 5 days out of the week, I only have 1 child. I saw Jackson almost every day, though she lived in Arden at the time, about 15 minutes away from me. He'd say that he misses me, misses home. And no, that's good. I can talk for a little longer.
Internal messaging, listeners. Internal messaging.
So she would put Jackson in the car, drive him over every day that he was over. And if it just got to be too much for any of us, she's just like, okay, it's time to go back home and sleep. So I wouldn't even go, all that time without seeing my kid. I get to see him at least every other day still. And then, he called her mom a lot, and he tried to not do it around me because he thought I wouldn't like it. Not many parents are okay with their kids calling the grandparent or anyone else mom. And
the situation I had at my house was my sister called my mom by the babysitter's name, thinking that all adult women went by that name. And my mom was like, I'm failing as a mother.
I called my grandma mom a lot, and my mom hated it. But there's a whole different dynamic, you know, from young me and my mom to adult me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not upset that you call her mom. You know I'm your mom too. And for all intents purposes, she is, you know, your mom.
She is a female role model.
Yeah. And he still asks when he gets to go back home. So it's trying to explain to him that you're not gonna get to go back home anytime soon, kid. Trying to explain what actually has happened. Aiden fully understands it. He is very much like me, and a very dark humor. So, you know, like when you say your mom jokes, like you'll call someone a name and then they're like, no, you're this. And you're like, your mom's that.
Right.
Well, he did that to me. I'm like, Aiden, you're being a silly goose. And he's like, no, your mom's a silly goose. And then he signed a dead one.
Oh my God.
Like, not even 2 days after my mom died.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And I'm like, baby, I love you, but you can't say that to anyone else in this family.
You're like, I'm good with this. Not everybody will be.
Yeah. And he's telling his little brother, like, you can't see grandma, you have to die. And he's telling him, he's like, you need to stop breathing or you need to put your head in water. I'm like, don't tell him how to die.
Okay, like
oh God.
I understand the intent, but no.
Because Jackson doesn't understand any consequences at all. You know, he rips paper and then, why is this broken? Why can't you fix it? Type kid. So it's a huge challenge. But yeah, my entire life basically is taking care of them and trying to get the supports they need put into place so that way they're somewhat functional as an adult. Because I'm not that functional.
Because you found ABA for it, right?
Yes.
What kind of difference did ABA make in their life?
Oh.
In your life?
So Aiden gets ABA.
What is ABA for those who don't know what it is?
ABA is applied behavioral analysis. Basically, they come in to your house when you have a child on the spectrum, and they help them with whatever behavioral issues they may be having. Meltdowns, potty training, anything.
They give you tools to help continue teaching those things when they're gone, right?
Yes. When Aiden started in 2020, he only ate chips, nothing else.
Where you got that from?
Couldn't tell you. I like noodles.
I haven't heard anything about this at all, so.
Could not tell you. And so now they got him to where he eats taquitos, grilled cheese, and most noodles.
And that's really big when he was fixated on a single food. Like those are
still very, very particular with his noodles.
Mm-hmm.
Like they like
chicken
the
nuggets?
box macaroni. Oh, yeah, it's chicken nuggets. He likes
You told me
chicken
about the
nuggets.
chicken.
Have to be the round ones.
So yeah, I was just telling me the other day she has to buy a 20-piece just to hope to get enough round ones that he'll eat them.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because I don't want to be the person in the drive-thru saying, "Can you please put 6 round chicken nuggets in my container?"
You know,
And make
honestly,
sure they're
I
actually
would.
round.
I would.
honestly, if I was working in the kitchen, I'd have no issues with doing that.
Yeah, I would. If
So
you're,
many people get annoyed, and
if you
I
were,
don't want.
if you were clear with them and let them know that, hey, I have a kid who's on the spectrum who only eats round chicken nuggets. Would you mind, if you can, making sure they're all round? I bet you they'd be like, oh, all right, let's help out the kids. It's like Wu-Tang's for the kids, you know?
I'm sure that would be the case, but I don't want to have to tell everyone that
I get that.
he is on the spectrum because it's none of their business. Who cares if he just wants round chicken nuggets? Doesn't hurt anyone.
No, it doesn't. But the
like I'll make a hamburger helper. I have to just do the helper, no hamburger. Wonder where he got that. But like, you know, the large shell ones.
mm-hmm.
Well, when you cook large shells, they cook into each other.
Yeah.
And he has a very hard time with his gag reflex, and he likes small bites. So whenever I made that, I used to have to dish up his bowl on a plate and separate the noodles into a single layer on his plate.
Okay.
And everyone's like, why the hell are you doing this? I'm like, it takes no real effort for me to do, and he eats his dinner with no complaints.
That's weird.
And there is.
So what if I have to separate his freaking noodles? I mean, it's annoying as hell, but
at the same time, peaceful. Again, yeah, like you're saying there, the price to have that piece is very little. The piece is worth so much.
Yeah. And
having gone through picky eaters, children as picky eaters, anything that you can do to keep them healthy and to eat without you having to sit there for 3 hours while they do it, like,
you'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, if it would take them 3 hours to eat something, and it'll take me an hour to prepare something, so I don't have to sit there for 3 hours, I'll burn the hour on the prep.
Oh yeah.
Not that it takes that long, but it's.
No.
Ultimately, the frustration that comes along with it isn't good for you, isn't good for the child.
It's like, what's 20 minutes now versus 3 hours later?
What do they say? An ounce of prevention
versus a pound of cure.
Yeah.
But so I'm doing all these things, and I'm just like reading the questionnaires that I'm filling out for ABA of, does your child do this? Does your child do that? And I'm reading them all. I'm like, this is all normal stuff. What are you talking about? Everyone does this. And
no.
The person, no, everyone does not. I'm like, well, I do, and part of my family does. They're like, well, then you are neurodivergent.
And so was your family.
And I'm just like, oh, that kind of tracks. That makes sense. Okay.
So you kind of took it in stride, at least.
Yeah. So
I had to add some clarity for you. That had to be like a moment.
That it made a lot of sense. That
is this why I struggled so hard in school?
Yeah, and I didn't know I was ADHD at this point. I'm like, okay, I'm autistic. Makes sense, makes, the lack of social skills,
Yeah.
not
Those are
doing
not mutually
introductions.
exclusive.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, great. So I finally have a handle on that. And then I'm just like, why is my life still so freaking hard? Like I can't do anything a lot. I spend a lot of the time just at home, not doing anything because I physically get overwhelmed. I can't do it. And I'm just like, huh. So I start looking into ADHD and I'm like, oh, okay, this is a whole new thing of, executive dysfunction and object permanence or whatever. And I'm like, so I'm not just an asshole because I forget people exist.
Oh, that is so relatable.
Right. Yeah.
I have a really good friend named Tommy that lives in Kansas City. I met him when I lived in Kansas City with Austin, and we've been friends since. I haven't seen him since I left in 2007, but we talk constantly through text. And one day I was thinking about him last year. I'm like, I haven't heard from Tommy in a while. And I go to message him. I'm like, oh, I haven't messaged him in 3 years. I bet he doesn't know that I have Jackson. So I messaged him. I'm like, hey, I have 2 kids now. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I kind of forgot you were alive.
Wow. Yeah.
Nah, I have a relatable story where there was someone that I used to chat with a lot on Facebook. We went to high school together, and just a few months ago, about maybe 6 months ago, I was like, I haven't heard from them in a while. I'm going to go check in on them. I go to message them. It's like, I haven't talked to them in like 2-3 years. They died.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was like, well, fuck.
Yeah, like when Jackson would be at my mom's, there would be a slight part of me that would just kind of forget I had 2 kids. And it's horrible to think that I could lightweight forget Jackson existed if I didn't make an effort.
I kind of get that though. When I'm not medicated, when I'm not taking Concerta, I have to be off it for at least a week for stuff like that to start happening. And once I've been off on my meds for about a week, anything that isn't immediately in front of me doesn't exist. Like there's no remembering anything I'm supposed to do. My life becomes 100% reactionary to what is immediately in front of me.
I think I've met you when you were that way because, like, we met and then you completely forgot that I existed, even though we worked in the same building.
Yep.
So I always.
Well, I was diagnosed towards the end of working at Apple.
Yeah.
I always thought it was because I was short. Like if it wasn't eye level, it didn't exist. But I couldn't explain that with people. Like I guess I'm just an asshole. Sorry,
Boy.
Which I've heard you say several times over the years. Yeah, when her and I would fight when we lived in Kansas City, I would put shit like where she couldn't reach it on purpose because she's 4'10". Mm-hmm. And it's not even the top shelf.
It's like the second shelf.
The second shelf.
The back of the second shelf.
Like, I'm 6'1". Yeah. I did that to my ex. I do that to my current wife too. Like, you know what? Fuck you. Put that up high.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Passive aggressive behavior, not healthy.
No, definitely not healthy.
Anybody do it. Kind of funny after the fact, though.
As long as everybody involved laughs about it, then it's okay. Yes. But if you're laughing and they're still pissed, that's a problem.
It wasn't funny at the time, but I mean, I also called him daddy in a supermarket. So I kind of deserved it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you would have laughed if that was anyone else.
Look, I'm outside observer. I'm laughing about the whole thing. Oh, come on. Oz laughed about it after the fact today.
Yeah, it took him a couple years.
Well, yeah.
I thought it was freaking hilarious.
And Sarah in chat just threw us under the bus, too, over the Concerta.
Yeah.
I didn't fully understand. I was 18, 19. I didn't understand what that fully meant,
Yeah. Sarah in
just
chat
thought it was funny.
In chat was adding on to what I was saying about when I don't take my Concerta. She said she can confirm this, and sometimes that week is not required. I mean, I'll try to give myself a little bit of grace, baby. Like,
well, she did give you a little bit by saying sometimes, not hell no.
Yeah.
She like jumps in. She's like 2 days tops. Nah,
So,
my son was on Concerta for a while.
Before you take your meds, like,
parenting kind of, I want to say, triggered like late ADHD, autism, psychosis type thing. Like, all the signs were there, but they weren't necessarily an issue because I was functioning day to day and I had no real stress in my life. And then, bam, neurodivergent kids and all the stress that come with it. And then you're like, why?
In a constant state of stress. Like, they're like, you haven't had a whole lot, especially since your mom has passed, you haven't had haven't had much reprieve.
The most kid-free time I get is when they're at school, or Aiden had surgery in January, and I had 2.5 hours of just waiting for the surgery to be done with that I didn't have any kids, and I just was enjoying that time. But also freaking out because Aiden's having surgery. Imagining because he has the bone problem that I have as well. Same with Jackson. And they took 3 tumors off of his arm right now. But I don't have anyone. My grandparents are dead. My mom is dead. My brother lives out of state, and even if he did live in state, we no longer talk at all. And I'm good with that because we were never really close. So I'm not really missing the relationship.
Yeah, you can't miss something that wasn't there,
Like, he's my brother.
There wasn't much to miss.
Reached out, I would, of course, respond. But we're too different to get along. I mean,
it's pure toxic, like.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of it, and that got real nasty real quick.
Yes, it did. We won't go into that, but I don't have siblings. I don't have any family or anyone, I have 100% custody of the kids. Kenny, even when we were married, he was never an active role in the boys' lives. I was a single mom while I was married. His family, they lived up until a year ago, they lived 20 minutes away, and they never saw my kids. They live in Idaho now.
You kind of had that outdated mentality of, if I'm going to provide the income, then you take care of everything in the home, and I should just be I should just be taken care of with the kids, since I'm paying for things.
I'm going through all this trauma, all this stuff, with my marriage, it crumbling and him making no effort. I made a lot of effort to try and make it work when I shouldn't have. I did marriage counseling. I did the work for years trying to get it to work out. And he wasn't changing anything in his behavior.
He wasn't invested in the healing of the relationship.
And being a stay-at-home mom, his dad said that I was to have an allowance for spending on whatever I wanted. And he's like, I give her allowance. She's able to buy gas and groceries. And his dad is not an allowance. It needs to be outside of that. And make an amount of allowance. So I chose how much I should make. And it was literally everything after bills were paid.
Talk about all or nothing.
I'm stressed. I'm realizing I have neurodivergent kids. I'm realizing I'm neurodivergent. I don't understand. I don't know. I'm ADHD at this point, so I don't understand like the impulsivity or the reckless spending or that dopamine hit, and I'm just buying. So he blames our entire marriage faults on that, and I know that contributed to it, but I wouldn't have done any of that if he had been putting in the work to try and change and fix any of his behaviors.
Oh, it sounds like you were trying to fill a void with tangible things. I was,
and I have a room full of tangible things, and I love this room.
Kind of sounds a little bit like your mom, right?
Yeah, but hers was all like dumpsters and marbles and.
Well, I'm talking about it's a learned behavior, gain comfort from stuff. You know,
I at least went for quality over quantity. She took whatever she could get. I mean, she found sex toys in the dumpster and brought them home and boiled them.
I was just and tried to give it to her.
Not only tried to give it to her.
Nope.
It was my senior year of high school, and I had finally brought friends home to do work on a school project. And we'd been fighting, and she came in, and she brought one of the jelly pink or purple glitter-filled dildos in, and just plopped it down on my computer desk right next to my mouse. And she's like, here, because you're being a bitch. I'm just like...
God.
Wow.
And I'm like, no amount of boiling is going to get me to put that inside of me. What is wrong with you? She's like, it worked fine. I tried it out. I'm like,
what? Okay, that just made it 10 times worse at least.
Oh, God.
No.
So,
that's horrible. I'm a visual person, and I knew your mom.
And all day.
It's gonna be living rent free in my brain forever. Thank you. God,
you're welcome.
damn.
You think of that at night you think of that when you sleep in her bed, her little spot.
All right, so to my mom, who decided for my ex-wife's birthday when we were still married that she bought her a Lifesavers dildo. That's not the worst thing I've ever heard now from a mother.
Yeah.
I mean, she bought that for my wife, her daughter-in-law. That is now no longer the worst thing I've ever heard a mother do.
Yeah. That's that situation too. Like, Mom, what are you trying to say? Like, that's I mean, at least yours probably had a price tag on it, or your ex-wife's.
It was still in the package. I mean, my mom, she was very much into shock humor, so that was on brand for her. But damn. Now to hear about that, I tried this, it's just fine, you should use it. No, God, no. God, no.
In front of friends.
It was
Ah!
a dumpster dildo. It was a dumpster one. It wasn't even brand new in a package. She pulled it out of a neighbor's dumpster with my grandpa. Like,
Oh God. Why
yeah.
was your grandpa dumpster diving? The dude's like
Because the person next door was moving and
his bank account.
the person next door was moving and they had one of those huge dumpsters in front of my grandparents' house. And my mom jumped in and my grandpa was excited to see what she was finding and he's holding the flashlight. Yeah.
I can't. He was so conservative. I can't even imagine his reaction. Your mom going, "Look what I found!" Wobble, wobble, wobble. It's
Well, she closed the box real quickly, and he's like, "Well, I want to see," and she's like, "No, you don't." And he insisted. And she's like, "Okay," so she opens up the box. He's like, "Ugh," and he just shudders, and then he's like, "I'm going inside." He's like, "Don't take those home," and she's like, "I'm going to take them home and boil them, sterilize them," and yeah, So that was the kind of mom I had at 17. Like, that's not the kind of parent you want. Like, you think that's what you want, but it's not.
Yeah, that's a grass is greener type of thing. Like, it sounds like it would be entertaining, but I mean,
it's
not
entertaining
even as a spectator. Not even like, I mean, as a spectator, because I was there for some of it, and just there's a lot of really uncomfortable moments where everybody there's like, you're used to this behavior, your brother is checked out, doesn't give two shits, and your mom is just your mom, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing that's ever prepared me for any of this. Like, this is there was nothing that would. No, and I mean, and I grew up in a really liberal household. Like, I grew up. I had a real liberal life growing up. And no, there was nothing.
Well, because of how of my grandparents were, everyone in the family, because my aunt is bipolar, my mom is borderline personality with ADHD and possible autism. We're all neurodivergent, and we liked the shock factor that my grandparents, would give, their sheer look of utter disgust and disapproval, and we loved it.
Yeah. Only if they would have caught on. If they wouldn't have reacted, things could have been a lot calmer.
Yeah. Like, when I was younger, I remember telling him, I'm like, if you just let me make my own decisions and butt out of my life, I'd be just fine. And, I'm 14 at this point, and they think that I'm just being a rebellious teenager, where all they're pushing just pushed me even further towards choices that weren't the best, just for spite.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I think you have shared a lot of really interesting, scary, shocking, some insightful, and I like the redemption story of your mom. Like, this has been a roller coaster.
It has been. It's been great.
Of an episode. I think this is a good spot to close out this show. And,
agree. I want you back.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, you have other stories that could be just an entire episode by itself.
So all the writing that I've done, I've gotten up to 2009 when I was 22, and I'm on like 50 pages of just from like 1989 at 3 years old to 22.
Yeah. we started
And
doing a
that's
little
when my
project
life
with her.
really started going downhill. Is at 22.
Yeah, yeah. We haven't crested the hill yet.
Yeah,
Wow.
this is nothing. It's
So today we got to learn about Alice's baseline, and so we get to we
and
really
it's not
get to
even
find the hill.
it's,
What's that?
it's not even all the good stuff. It's not even
Yeah.
all the traumatic stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, we will definitely have to have you back. It has been you've been amazing tonight, and I'm like really thankful that you're sharing with us and our listeners.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's
So,
great seeing you again, too, Alice, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, it was a kick in the ass meeting you to begin with, honestly, and your kids. I loved it. It was so much fun.
Yeah, they're
We all got to come
fairly
back
good.
to your place and hang out again.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're almost done with all the renovations. We will be done this week, finally, after a year. And so when Flood-mageddon stops, they're supposed to get 6 more inches of rain or some crazy thing like that. And like we got 2 feet of snow a couple weeks ago. There's still traces of snow up here. We might have gotten rid of it. But once the weather gets better, I'll definitely have you guys up.
Yeah.
I still have Alice's bounce house in my garage.
Nice.
I've moved that damn. I should have had her take it home when she visited. I've had to move it like 8 times. That thing is huge.
It is. It's.
I have no.
Oh, you
word
should
for
see
it.
our bounce house. Our bounce house is fucking massive. I just have to clean it because the dogs peed on it, and it's such a pain in the ass to clean.
Yeah. Simple Green. I used to deliver bounce houses. Simple Green is the way to go. If it's the vinyl kind,
It's a vinyl kind.
Simple Green will get rid of anything on vinyl.
All right, we'll do.
If Simple Green, you hear us, we'll take a sponsorship.
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll happily take sponsorships.
Yeah, come support mental health.
Yeah, the best you'll get from us is we'll put you on a sponsors page, and we may even open an episode by saying, this episode's sponsored by, but we're not going to do a full pitch. But yeah, again, thank you for coming along. And for people who are wondering about how bad is it in California, Heavenly in South Lake Tahoe, one of the greatest ski resorts on Earth, helped to host the Winter Olympics back in the 80s. It is closed today because its chairlift is buried in snow. We have that much snow right now, and we're getting more. This storm's supposed to go through Wednesday. Our drought is over, officially. We have more water content in our snow than we have had since 1970, and growing.
Yeah, we've gotten, and it's been, the precipitation's been delivered in a healthy way for the environment. When there is too much precipitation at once, it just all becomes runoff, goes into creeks, finds its way to the ocean. But when there's dry off periods like we've been having, snow dries up, rain dries up, it gives it time. It gives her time to soak it up, and it can actually make it down to the aquifers and down to the water table, and really helps us out. So
exactly, our groundwater's looking good for once.
Yeah. So hopefully that's kind. I'm gonna knock on some wood for this summer, and we don't go. We're not too dry going into it.
Yeah, we're still going to be a fireball. We always are. But aside from that, if you haven't joined our Discord server, please do so. Just go to amimental.net. It's in the upper right-hand corner if you're on a computer. If you're on a mobile device, there's a little menu button that you tap at the top, and you'll see the Discord thing. Love to see you there. Outside of that, I'm E.
I'm Moss.
Awesome. Anyway, we'll catch you guys next week.